Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kim Carriff and I'm one of the Inside Account Managers here at Professional Advantage. Gail and I just like to say welcome to everyone that's attending. We're just waiting for a few more people to log in, and as we do that, we'll do some housekeeping. Now, what this means is there's actually a screen section on the side where you can type in your questions as we go through, and we'll answer as many of those as we can at the end of the sessions. Any questions that we don't get to, we'll have one of the account managers get a response to you via email. Just so you know, we are recording the sessions, so we have put all the attendees into listen-only mode. It's just so that we don't get any additional feedback through the system. So with that, I'll introduce the consultant that's going to be taking us through the year-end processes today, and that's Gail Kruger. Gail's been with us for many, many years and has been a GP consultant for many additional years before that. I'm not going to give away too many numbers. We girls like to keep our ages a secret, I think. But she is a fountain of information, and I think everyone's going to get something from this session today. It is based on GP 2013, but the sessions are the processes are very similar for each version of GP. So that's enough of me, and I'll hand over to Gail.
Thanks, Kim. So welcome, everybody. So it's that time of year again when we're all getting busy to do our year ends. And because it's a process we only do once a year, a lot of people feel a bit uneasy about the process. So hopefully by the end of today, you'll have a little bit more confidence to either go through the process on your own, or you are more than welcome to book one of our consultants to help you. So a couple of facts about the year-end process is it is not reversible. So once you've closed off the year, that's it. However, you can still post journals to that year. So if you do want to close off your year and you don't have your audit adjustments yet, you can still go ahead and post those, and GP will either roll those adjustments forward into the balances or close them off to the retained earnings account for you. The second fact, really important, make sure you have got complete backups before you do your year-end process. And then the third one is it is recommended that you have all users out of the system during the year-end close. Some of the maintenance procedures do actually require you to be in single user, so they'll actually give you a warning if there is somebody in the system. So what does the actual year-end process do in GP? So for your sub-modules, it is more an inquiry process. So if you've noticed, you have got inquiry screens in AP and AR where you can see prior year figures, year-to-date figures, etc. So those will all get updated for you. So that's a sub-module. With fixed assets, in GP 2013, you have to close off your fixed assets before you can start processing in the new year. It actually updates the financial calendar linked to your fixed assets. So if that's not updated, you won't be able to process. So that's the only one that you really do need to do at the end of the year. And then the main year-end rollover process is with general ledger. So all of your accounts that have got a posting type of profit and loss will be closed off to your retained earnings account, and all of your balance sheet accounts will have their balances rolled forward. You do also have an option in the year-end process to remove inactive accounts. So if you've gone through the year and actually marked accounts as inactive, it will remove them for you. Right, so generally when you get to do your year-end rollover, you'll do your normal month-end processes, which is posting anything that's outstanding. If you have got any recurring batches, you can those you can keep for the next year, or you can set them up new. That's up to you. It's not a requirement. And then do make sure that all your sub-ledgers are balanced into your general ledger. It's very important to rather fix that and have a nice clean slate going into a new financial year than bringing across balances that don't necessarily reconcile, because it will be that much harder to try and reconcile them down the line. once again, complete backup. Right, so generally your process when you do the year-end rollover is, I always say, start off with a backup and then you're going to run your maintenance. So depending on your company, if you've got quite a few companies or you only have a few but you've had GP for quite a few years, you may have quite a lot of data. So the check links especially can take a couple of hours to run. So I always say backup, then do your maintenance, then take another backup, because if something happens in your year-end rollover, at least you can go back to the backup where you've already run your maintenance so that you don't have to rerun it all again. So the first maintenance you can run is check links. So what check links does is it actually looks at the SQL tables at the back end, and so for a transaction you may have about 3 or 4 tables that are affected. So when I do an AP invoice, I've got a header, I've got lines, I've got distributions, I've got tax, etc. And it goes through and just double checks that if it finds an invoice in one of those tables, it finds all the corresponding entries in the other. So it does a real fix-up for you. Please note that checklinks does actually fix any issues it finds, so it's not something that you run and gives you a report and then you act on it. It will actually go through and fix anything that has discrepancies. I'm going to pop into Great Plains GP quickly. It is GP 2013. So just to show you where to find check links, you can either go off your administration button or good old-fashioned way, Microsoft Dynamics GP and maintenance, and you've got check links. Now the one thing with check links which is quite nice is you can go through all your series and actually just insert all and then select your next one and insert all. So if you've got a lot of data, especially if you've got purchase orders seem to really take the most time, I would do this and go through each module and select all, and then do that just before you leave work for the day and run it so that when you come back in the morning it should be finished. So that's your check links. So the tables that we generally run check links on are sales, purchasing, inventory, and financial. After you've run, well, you can run Reconcile before or after check links. It's up to you. So Reconcile does something a little bit different. It actually looks at the data within GP and what's showing in your inquiries. So it says, right, looking at, say, your debtors, if this debtor in your inquiry says it's got a balance outstanding of $100,000, it goes through all the transactions and makes sure that they actually reconcile to that amount. So that's actually a procedure you could run anytime. You don't only have to run it at year end. If your data is looking a bit funny, you can always run Reconcile, and that should fix out any discrepancies. So once again, we do run Reconcile, sales orders, purchase orders, inventory, if you've got project accounting, receivables, payables, and general ledger. And generally run it in that order. As long as you run your sub-ledgers first before your general ledger, you're generally okay. Doesn't matter if you skip it a little bit. Just be very careful with inventory. I have seen if you're using lots that sometimes Reconcile causes an issue. So if you're not sure, just contact our help desk or a consultant just to make sure that you won't cause any damage. But once again, you've got your backup. So if you run your Reconcile and then you go into inventory and you see just weird numbers against lots, then you can just restore to backup. To run your Reconcile, it's all off of Argo Microsoft Dynamics tools, and then utilities. I never remember if it's utilities or routine. So for each of these, you'll see, so financial, you've got Reconcile, sales, Reconcile, etc. So if you follow the, I either just go from the bottom up because financials last, so you can start at inventory, purchasing, etc. So I'll just show you one of the screens just so you have a bit of an idea. So you'll see with the Reconcile, you've got a couple of different options. So current data information, outstanding documents, batch information. Generally for a year-end rollover, I'll just run a financial year Reconcile. I won't run it for all of that information. So I just run it for the financial year and run it for the year that I'm closing. And you can print the report just to see if it's picked up any differences. But as I mentioned, that process in itself can take a couple of hours depending on the size of your data. If you don't have a lot of data, that it won't take very long at all. The other thing you do need to make sure of is that you do have your next financial year open, so your period's created. Sorry, I'm just going to go, it's under administration if you want to go that way around. So under setup company, you've got financial periods. So if I was setting up the next year, I just change the year to 2015. GP will automatically pick up your first and last day based on your prior year, the number of periods, and you just click calculate. And that will set up your new year for you. You'd also need to go through and set up your tax periods, and the same applies. Put in your new year, first day, last day, number of periods, and calculate. So when running the actual year-end procedure, once again, we'll run our sub-ledgers before our general ledger. So this is just a guideline for you. So to do inventory first, then receivables, payables, and then fixed assets, and then finally your general ledger. As I said, it is a guideline. If you, by mistake, you do payables first instead of receivables, it's not the end of the world, as long as you've closed off your sub-modules before your general ledger. Right, so just a basic overview of the year-end routine for inventory. So you'll have everything posted, then you'll go and do your reconcile. Also have a physical inventory count and make sure that your stock is correct. Print any additional reports and make sure you have all your balancing reports like a stock status or anything like that that you would run at the end of the month. Because what you'd want to do is once you've done your rollover, you want to run that again and make sure that it still is the same figure. And then you'll see once with these procedures as I'm going through, there's a bit of repetition because you'll see all of them will say have a pre-year end closing backup. So you really would do your backup, run your maintenance, do another backup, and then close off your sub-ledgers and then double check that everything balances. Okay, here saying the year-end close must be done before any transactions for the new year have been posted. With your sub-modules, you can do that because they are only affecting inquiries. So if you have gone and posted things, your inquiries, if you do rely on those last year-to-date figures, they could be slightly out because of anything that's been posted. So you're very safe to go through and close your sub-modules. If you want to leave your general ledger for a month or so while people are still putting adjustments in, you can. You don't have to close everything off at the same time. If you're not too concerned about those inquiries that you don't really use them, then you can close them off a bit later, except, as I said, for fixed assets, because you won't be able to process fixed assets before that. Okay, so I'll just go into the year-end process for inventory so you can see your options. So that's all under Tools, Routines, and then the different modules, and each one of them will have a year-end close. So with inventory, you can choose to remove discontinued items. If you're using lots, any sold lot attributes, you can remove those as well. And if you have any sold receipts with cost change history prior to a specific date, you can change that as well. If you want to update the item standard cost when you do your year-end rollover, you can opt to do that as well. These are all optional, so you don't have to do those if you don't want to, and you can just process the year-end close. So with your FIFO or LIFO, if you use your update standard cost, that standard cost field will be updated to reflect your current cost of your inventory. Please note there's no report when you run some of the sub-module year-end procedures, mainly just a general ledger that will give you your closing journal. So receivables management, once again, you need to make sure everything's posted, do your backup, and then you can go through and close your years. Okay, so I'm going to go into that screen and we'll have a quick look. So once again, I'm just going to go under Tools, Routines. You can also use your navigation buttons, and if you're going to sales, I just find it a bit easier to go off the top menu for year-end so that I can see the modules all together and just work my way up till I get to financial. So I have a look at sales, which is accounts receivable. There isn't really a year-end close for sales order processing or purchase order processing. So really, year to close, financial or calendar, and generally I only worry about financial. I don't do calendar. And if you are doing inquiries based on financial and calendar, you could do that, but that means you'd have to close off the calendar December and come and close off your financial if you run July to June at June. And I can print a report for that. So that, once again, as I said, we'll just go and update your inquiries. Show you an inquiry that it will update. This is GP 2013 for those who don't have 2013, if it looks a little bit weird. So as you can see, this is a yearly summary inquiry. So there we have got year to date, last year, life to date. And these are the inquiries that the year end will update. Okay. Payables management, once again, make sure everything's posted. You're going to print an age trial balance for payables and AR. So any of your month-end reports that you generally would print them so that you have something to compare against after you've run your year-end rollover. You once again make your backup and then go and close the year. There's a little note here to close the fiscal period, so just something to be aware of. You would most probably already have closed the fiscal periods before you run your year end, because you do want to make sure that nobody's going to be posting accidentally to that year. So if you haven't done so already, you do need to go close them. It doesn't automatically close the fiscal year. All it automatically does is mark that year as a historical year. So have a quick look at payables. And once again, very similar to the AR one, just choose whether you're closing financial or calendar. These procedures generally run pretty quickly. The bulk of the year-end close timing is your maintenance. The actual process of closing the year is quite quick. So once again, it's going to update any summary or yearly inquiries that you may have. When you see the comment here about some smart list items are affected by calendar year end close and other by fiscal year end close, so that's all your summary smart lists. So when you're looking maybe at customer balances and you've got different columns that refer to last year, year to date, etc., you will have some smart lists that reference calendar and some financial. Okay, fixed assets. So I would do fixed assets after I've done inventory, AP and AR. So those three, any order really, but then fixed assets and then general ledger. So obviously you just make sure you finished your month-end procedures for fixed assets, so do all your depreciations, acquisitions, disposals, etc. There's a little check to ensure your fixed asset calendar is built. It should be, because when we first implement GP, we do build the calendar and it goes to, I think it's 2,100 and something. So just to show you where it is though, in case you do want to check it. Let's go through here. So under financial, utilities, and you've got fixed assets. Sorry, it says utilities on there. I think it's under, mine's disappeared. Under setup, fixed assets, you have your calendar. And what you can do is if you just click on verify. Now, to find your fixed asset calendar, it may actually be in a different spot with 2013 to the old ones, only because there's a slightly more functionality around calendars in 2013. So I'll just run this. So it's pretty much from 1901 to 2199 is all okay. So you should be okay with your fixed asset calendar. You shouldn't need to go and build it. Okay. I just want to go into the fixed asset year-end close. So basically it's just choosing your book. So if you do have multiple books, if you have a tax and an account, you do need to do them, or you can insert all of them at once, and then you just click continue. And that will close off your assets and update the calendar so that you're able to post. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to process your fixed assets and you get an error message saying you cannot post because I think it's something like the period's not open. It just means that you haven't run your year-end close. So general ledger overview. So this is the main one. So close all your other modules. Make sure everything's posted. Print out. I wouldn't actually print an account list. I'm going to show you a smart list that you can run to check your posting type of each account. You can go through and close your periods, which you would have done already, perform your maintenance, have a backup, and print out your trial balances, any P&Ls, balance sheets that you can then use to compare against once you've done your year-end rollover. So, in big bold, make sure all your posting accounts have been set up with the correct posting type. Very important, because if they haven't, if by mistake you have a balance sheet account that is set up as profit and loss, that will close off to the retained earnings account. So a quick way to do this is using SmartList. So generally in an organization, you'll have a range for balance sheet and then a range for profit and loss. So I'm just opening up Smart List. So from your financial Smart List, from accounts, mine's really slow for some reason. I don't have very many. So I can see, okay, so balance sheet is everything that starts in, this is my test data, so I'm not very good at keeping everything consistent. So I'll just say 00 for balance sheet, and I'll go from 5 and up for profit and loss. So when you do your search, column name, take your account number. Now you can break that up. So instead of having account number, because as you know the account number is the whole string, you could actually change it to all columns and then just look for the main account. So main account segment, generally just the account number. So I'm going to say begins with 00. And I'm going to, so those should be my balance sheet, and then I'm going to say where the posting type is equal to profit and loss. So if your accounts are correct, that should give me a 0 result. So everything in the balance sheet range has got a posting type of balance sheet. Now mine aren't correct, so I will have a couple. So there I can see, all right, I've got 4 that I've set up. Oh, I've got the other way around. So I've got 4 that are set up that should be balance sheet. And then you just have the same search with your profit and loss range. So do a range, and so you can do begins with, or you can say is between. So do a range of accounts, and then posting type is equal to balance sheet. So that will very quickly just pick up any accounts within that range that have been set up incorrectly. And then from Smart List, you can just double click on the account, which will open it up, and you can change it to balance sheet. So that's a quick way to check that your accounts are set up correctly. And then you would go ahead and do your year-end close. Just wanted to show you quickly in your setup of General Ledger. This is where you actually specify your retained earnings account. Don't know if I've got one. I'll just choose anyone for now. So that's where you actually specify the retained earnings account. If you wanted to close off to what they call here divisional account segments, so if you had cost centers that you wanted it to actually close off to and not only one retained earnings account, the main account would stay the same, but if I said close to divisional account segments, I just choose the segment that would need to change. So you can have that with one retained earnings account that's going to close off to multiple cost centers. So going to the year-end close for financial. So for those of you who have upgraded to GP 2013 or who have purchased GP 2013, you have a status bar. Everybody else doesn't. They've just got to wait until the report pops up. So a couple of options with your retained earnings. So it's showing me now the retained earnings that was in my setup. I can change it if I wish. It gives me the next starting journal entry number. And then if you do want to, so it will automatically remove any inactive accounts. If you want to keep your inactive accounts, you need to tick that. And then you can say, do you want to maintain all inactive accounts or only those that have budget amounts on them? So those are your options. Please be aware that this is a GP 2013 option, so you may not see this if you have an older version. And then also if you want to remove unused segment numbers. So if, for example, I wasn't using cost center 103 anymore and I did that, it will just remove 103 from my list. And then I would simply close here, and that will go ahead and clear off my P&L accounts, and it will update my balance sheet balances. With your analytical accounting, it doesn't, if you do have analytical accounting, it doesn't have a separate procedure. It actually just closes off while you do your general ledger year-end closing. With GP 2013, however, you can choose whether you want the balances to be brought forward as a balance sheet account or to clear off to a profit and loss, like a profit and loss account. Okay, so this slideshow is just talking about the smart list. Okay. Another thing to make sure of, and once again, when we implement GP, we do set this up. So only if you know, if you go just do a spot check on a couple of accounts, I wouldn't go through every account to check this, but it's just to make sure you do have the maintain history options marked. I'll show you where that is. If we just pick up an account, sorry. I'll show you where it is. Sorry, doesn't seem to be there with GP 2013. Oh, no, sorry. So with your general ledger, it's on the actual setup. We just maintain history, accounts and transactions. And as I said, that's always set up as part of GP. Just a note, if you don't have them selected, then any historical information, and historical information is information that's kept once you do your year-end rollover, will be deleted. Right, so I did show you the screen where you can run through the process, so just ensure your retained earnings account is correct. And then in the older versions, it will actually show you the year that's being closed as well, and then you can click your close year option. So just some notes on it. So once the year-end close is completed, you will get a report printed out, which is basically your journal. So it will show you only the P&L accounts and the total going to retained earnings. So you can have a look at that total that's gone off to retained earnings and compare that to your end-of-year P&L and check that that balances, or to your balance sheet. And once again, you would go through and reprint any reports that you generated prior to the year-end rollover, so any profit and losses, balance sheets, trial balances, age-in reports, and just make sure that they all still correspond. So as mentioned, you can close all your fiscal periods or financial periods for all series, and you can take one more backup if you're happy that the year-end has been a success. As I mentioned, there isn't a separate closing procedure for AA. You do need to make sure you're logged in as SA, which is the system admin account, in case you get any permission errors with AA. As mentioned, for GP 10 and Service Pack 2 and above, you can choose to have balance brought forward entries with your AA accounts. And just a note, if you do have AA, best practice is to ask a consultant, to book a consultant for assistance. So we've come to the questions section of today.
Okay, thank you very much, Gail. That was really informative, and I'm sure everyone's gotten a lot out of that. At the moment, we've only got a couple of questions, but please feel free to log your questions in the question pane at the side. The first one we've got here is, and I hope I'm explaining it properly, if we choose not to close the year end for the payables and receivables until, say, early August, and we post July transactions, will the inquiry screen update when we do close the year to the correct year-to-date entry?
Yeah, now I've actually got a little trick with that. So I tend to, and I think with the later versions of GP it's not essential, but I tend to set my date in GP to be the end of June. So I kind of trick GP into thinking that I'm running it at the end of June so that it doesn't include any July, August transactions. So you can do that as well. I normally like to do it just as a safety measure. It's not compulsory. So just to show you what I'm talking about, at the bottom of GP you have the date. So I just click on that and I just make that the end of June, and then I run through my year-end close.
Great. There's been a couple of people that have asked whether we'll do copies of the slides. The slides will be part of the presentation that we've recorded, and everyone will get the link of this recorded session so that you can review it at a later time. And we'll also be giving out the year-end procedures document so that you'll have all of those on hand also. Next question here is, does GP 2013 fix the period 13 issue being on the 30th of the 6th, 2014?
So I'm not sure what issue you would have with that, so what issue you're referring to. But if you do have a period 13, and really the debate is why do you have a period 13? So a lot of companies have the period 13 that they can keep it open, which you don't have to do for GP. Whether you do keep it in period 13 because you want to report separately on any adjustments, that is a valid reason. So not sure what the issue would be, but GP, if you've got a period 13, it does treat that as the last period of your year. So when you do your year-end close, it's that period that it will close and roll over to the next. So I'm not sure what the issue was that you were experiencing, but that's how it would treat it.
What we might do, if that hasn't answered your question, if you can just email us and we'll get that fully looked into for you. The next one, is there a simple and quick way of performing a backup directly through GP?
I'm not sure if there is a link to a SQL backup through GP, and to perform a SQL backup yourself, you do need to have the correct permissions. So I would be hesitant to actually say, yep, go through GP and do a SQL backup. I think you may find an option through the maintenance, there's a SQL maintenance, but I would rather say if you are familiar with SQL Management Studio, just go through SQL Management Studio. It's very quick. You just right-click on the database and say Tasks Backup. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's best to get your IT or a help desk or somebody who has that knowledge to help you do the backup.
Okay, if you removed the unused account segment, would it remove only unused for that year or prior years, which may have transactions against that segment?
Now, what I think it's actually referring to, which is actually a bit, in my view, useless, but you do have the setup of the segment. So under here, under your financial setup, where you've got segment, and I've got region, and then I can pick up a number and it's got a description. I believe it will only remove it from here because it can't go and remove any transaction history. So that's really all it's referring to.
Right. Actually, just back on that period 13, I've had an update that says it doesn't allow posting on the 30th of the 6th, 2014 as period 12. So.
Oh, no, it won't. So because period 13 ends, you've actually got it on the 30th. Yes, you can only post, your period 12 will actually end on the 29th. So if you want to post into period 12, you have to do 29th, but everything on the 30th will be period 13, and that's just standard. So you may want to think of your reasons for having a period 13, and possibly when you set up your next financial period, you can actually just go to 12 periods if you don't get a benefit. But if the benefit's there for you, then it's fine, keep it, but that's how it will work. Period 12 will end at the 29th.
Okay. Look, with the client that's asking that, if you do need more information, we can take that one offline for you. Look, the final one is just how long will the link for the presentation be active? It will stay active on our YouTube channel site for at least 12 months, so plenty of time there for you to refer back to it at a later date.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to add is that all our help desk team are trained to assist during financial year end closes. So except for if you do have really advanced analytical accounting or things like that, but if you're straightforward financials, they can assist you, and they also do have the year end documentation. So if you don't get hold of it, they can send it out to you.
Great. One last question here that I can see is we haven't closed our payables or receivables. Is that a problem? I guess the question is how long?
Yeah, and as I said, it's not going to stop you from capturing. Some people don't even see benefit to those inquiries, so they close it off when they close it off. As I said, if you do decide you want to close it off now, just backdate your date to the end of June, close them off, and it will only it will update your inquiries as at the end of June. So you can do it now. It won't impact your transacting at all.
Well, we're just waiting for a few more questions to come in. There is actually a special offer available to attendees today, and what that is to book online assistance, so that's remote on the phone assistance with one of our team members, and we've discounted that down to $150 per hour, obviously excluding GST. Now you just need to book this time by the 30th of June 2014. The work doesn't have to be done by then, obviously. So just get in contact with us. The next screen will give you an email address and a contact phone number. Or, of course, you can contact your inside account manager and they will be able to help you with that. Again, it's $150 per hour for year-end online assistance. So it's having somebody on the phone with you, helping you through these processes. Okay, a couple more questions just to round out. What happens if you don't change the system date and perform the rollover?
So I believe in the later versions when you click financial, because you're saying financial year, it should pick up the last financial year. Maybe the earlier versions I have seen, so this is just something I've always done, and to be honest, I always set the date back, so I haven't played around with not setting it back. Your general ledger, it will close off the correct financial year. For your inquiries, it may include some of the newer transactions in your last year figures, which is not really the end of the world because I don't really know anybody who uses those inquiries. But if you do use those inquiries, then just set the date back.
I guess as an add-on to that, it says, and we already have data in July and August, assuming we close in September.
Yeah, so if you... Worst case scenario is if you close in September, it will just include that into those inquiry screens as last year figures. A lot of people nowadays have got BI tools like ClickView and reporting tools, and they use those to do their analysis and not the GP inquiry screens. I don't know many clients who do use them, but if you do, then try and close off or backdate the date.
Great. Couple more. It says, while rolling the year forward for the next year, can we change the number of periods to 12 instead of the 13?
Yes, definitely. You can also, because some companies are actually, can be bought over by bigger companies, and perhaps they run in a January to December financial year, and the holding company runs July to June, and you could actually set up a financial year to only be 6 months to get in line with somebody else, or you could set up an 18-month financial year. So it's fine. It will handle that. The only thing where you've got to be a little bit careful is with your FRX reports, with your columns, when you're looking for period 12 last year, or period, you might have to, in that column, just put in that it's 12 to 13 to get last year figures. So it's just your reporting that you'll have to be wary of.
Okay, couple of last questions. Our final financial year 2014 tax figures are finalised in March 2015. Am I right to say I should keep the FY14 open until then and perform the year-end processes in March of 2015?
Yes, so it's totally up to you. You would actually, you would close your financial periods, not the year, but just make sure so nobody goes back and posts. But you can. Most people are really only doing the year-end close August, September, so you can do it March. The only thing with doing it that way is when you are looking at trial balances, etc., it can get confusing because you're not going to have opening balances up until when you do your rollover. So I have seen clients get confused with that before when they're doing a summary inquiry on an account, because it won't have an opening balance. So the other thing to keep in mind is that even though you've done the rollover, you can always go and post a journal to that historical year. You can post a journal to the historical year immediately before your current year, but not the one before that. So if I've just closed off what we're closing off, 2014, and if I want to post something in that, I can post into that year right up until I close off 2015. The minute I close off 2015, then I can't post to 2014 again. So it's not the end of the world if you close it off so that you've got your opening balances and then put in, because auditors never give you your adjustments as at the 30th of June, so you can put those in at a later stage.
Great. How essential is it to run check links for each sub-module? Are we able to skip this function for some sub-ledgers, example project accounting?
Yeah, I would. You don't have to run it for each sub-module, especially if, I mean, I've had where I've sat for 4 hours at a client watching check links, which is such a waste of time. It's just more to check that your data is all correct. So it's not going to affect the year-end close if you don't run it, but it's more just the year-end maintenance procedure. So it's actually got nothing to do with the function of the year-end close. It's just a maintenance procedure that we recommend you run once a year. So if you want to run it a little bit later or only do a couple of the sub-modules, that's fine. I think as long as you've done your financial one, just to check that that's all okay, then you can choose with your other sub-modules.
Fantastic. Final question I've got here before we wrap up, and it's just about the YouTube channel. The link will be sent to you, but Professional Advantage has its own channel on YouTube, so you can always just search under Professional Advantage. But certainly you will be get given the direct link for the recording of this session. Look, we're running a little bit ahead of time, which is great, so we'll give everyone back 8 minutes of their day. Thank you, Gail, for your presentation today. Fantastic. If you have any more questions, please either send it through to the email address on the screen at the moment, yearendassistance@pa.com.au. Give the phone number a ring, or contact your inside account manager. We are all very happy to help and call on the consultants with all their knowledge base that they have. Again, just on that special offer, it's for remote assistance, so it's online assistance for $150 per hour, excluding GST. Just need to book it in by the 30th of June 2014, but the actual appointments can take place after. So if we don't have any more questions, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and we'll catch you next time at our next webinar. Thank you.